Devon Lake was a filmmaker. Riley Motson was his first victim. Millions watched her final moments on YouTube, thinking it was just another horror short. No one realized they were witnessing a real murder crafted, edited, and uploaded by a killer hiding in plain sight. In 2020, Devon Lake was just another aspiring filmmaker lost in the sea of YouTube content creators. He had no formal training, no Hollywood connections, and no money for high-end equipment. But what he lacked in resources, he made up for in obsession. Devon was fascinated by horror, not the jump scares or ghosts, but the raw, disturbing realism of fear. He wanted to make films that felt too real, videos that left viewers unsettled long after they'd clicked away. He launched his channel, Lake Show FX, with little fanfare. The early videos were short, experimental, and grim. Devon filmed in abandoned warehouses, overgrown hiking trails, and derelict farmhouses. His lighting was harsh, the sound gritty, and the camera work shaky, but the audience grew quickly. Something about the way he captured fear felt authentic, almost uncomfortably so. People shared his work, calling it terrifying in a way movies never are. Within 3 months, he had over 100,000 subscribers. Within 6, that number tripled. Viewers were drawn to the realism. The screams didn't sound acted. The wounds didn't look fake. The victims, their eyes wide, their breathing shallow, seemed genuinely afraid. It was unsettling, but that was part of the appeal. Too real to be fake, one popular comment said. Devon pinned it. Fans speculated he had access to top-tier practical effects. Some even joked that he had a real dungeon somewhere. Devon never corrected them. He rarely showed his face, never gave interviews, and never broke character. Every video was uploaded in the dead of night, with vague titles like The Visitor or Room 17. Descriptions were minimal, tags were cryptic, but every time, the video exploded in popularity. Soon, horror forums began circulating theories. Some believed Devon was part of a secret film collective. Others claimed his videos were filmed overseas, where rules were looser. One thread even suggested he was a former crime scene investigator recreating real cases. The speculation only drove more traffic to his channel, but outside of YouTube, Devon remained a mystery. He had no digital footprint beyond his uploads, no social media, no known collaborators. And yet, his production value kept improving. The lighting became more refined, the staging more precise, the violence more graphic. Fans didn't question it, they just watched. One video in particular, The Basement Door, sparked a wave of theories. A young woman crawls across a concrete floor, sobbing, trying to push open a locked door. A shadow falls across her. The screen cuts to black. The acting was so raw, so intense, that viewers argued in the comments about whether it was real. Some praised Devon's casting choices, others said it felt like watching a snuff film. No one realized they were closer to the truth than they knew. As Devon's fame grew, so did his obsession. He wasn't just chasing views anymore, he was chasing the perfect scene, the most realistic scream, the most convincing expression of terror. And in his mind, the only way to get that was to stop pretending altogether. In the spring of 2021, missing persons reports began to quietly pile up across small towns in Oregon and Washington. The cases didn't raise immediate alarms. Most of the missing were young adults, often transient, living out of their cars, couch surfing, or simply passing through. Police assumed they had moved on, run away, or decided not to be found. There were no witnesses, no signs of struggle, and in many cases, no family pressing for answers. One by one, they vanished, leaving only vague traces behind. Among the first to disappear was Riley Motson, a 22-year-old backpacker from Colorado. She had been traveling the West Coast, documenting her journey through Instagram posts filled with nature trails and truck stop diners. Her last post was a selfie outside a roadside gas station just outside Salem, Oregon. After that, nothing. Her account went silent. Friends who tried to contact her got no replies. Days passed, then weeks. Eventually, a missing person report was filed, but with no physical evidence or foul play suspected, the case sat idle. Next was Mark Alvarez, a quiet, artistic young man from Vancouver, Washington, who had recently lost his job and was reportedly living out of his van. Friends said he'd become reclusive but still posted occasionally in online art communities. One day, his accounts went dark, and his van was later found abandoned in a wooded area just outside Portland. There was no blood, no signs of violence, just a half-eaten sandwich and a forgotten sketchbook on the dashboard. By the time the third person vanished, a waitress named Jenna Hill from Eugene, the pattern was forming, but no one had noticed it yet. Jenna disappeared after finishing a late-night shift at a diner off Interstate 5. Security cameras captured her walking into the parking lot. She never made it to her car. Her purse was later found in a nearby ditch, untouched. Each case was investigated locally, handled by different police departments with limited resources. None of them realized they were dealing with something far larger. The names, faces, and timelines were scattered across jurisdictions and rarely connected. The disappearances were chalked up to coincidence or personal decisions, and public interest faded quickly. Meanwhile, Devon Lake continued uploading videos. His channel's tone grew darker, more disturbing. In one clip, a young man lies motionless in a filthy bathtub, his eyes open and unfocused. Another shows a woman chained in a cellar, struggling to scream through a gag. The level of realism was beyond anything Devon had shown before. Fans praised the commitment of the actors, unaware that what they were watching wasn't acting at all. Viewers had no idea that the people they were seeing were already listed as missing. Each scream was real. Each desperate movement was genuine. And behind the camera, Devon kept filming, pushing further with each scene, satisfied that no one had yet caught on. The horror wasn't just in what he was doing, it was in how easily he got away with it. The first clue that something was wrong didn't come from the police, it came from a Reddit user named HorrorHound87, a longtime fan of horror media. He was known for dissecting online videos, analyzing every frame for hidden details. One night, while rewatching a popular upload from Lake Show FX titled Alone in the Dark, he paused on a shot where a screaming woman briefly passed in front of the camera. Her arm was exposed for only a second, but something caught his eye, a small tattoo of a crescent moon on her wrist. It was oddly familiar. Curious, he began searching missing persons databases and stumbled across the photo of Riley Motson, the backpacker who had vanished months earlier. In her last known photo, she stood smiling with the same tattoo on her wrist. The resemblance to the woman in Devon's video was disturbing. He posted the side-by-side comparison on a horror forum. Some users dismissed it as coincidence, but others took it seriously. Within days, the post went viral. Amateur sleuths and true crime enthusiasts dove headfirst into Devon's video archive. They combed through every upload, pausing, zooming in, screenshotting blurry faces and distinctive features. Soon, more potential matches surfaced. A thin scar across a man's cheek in one video matched a photo of Mark Alvarez. A necklace worn by a seemingly lifeless girl in another upload was identical to the one Jenna Hill was wearing in her final Instagram post. What had started as fan speculation turned into something darker. People began asking whether Lake Show FX was actually staging real crimes. The comments shifted from praise to fear. Videos that once earned compliments on realism were now being scrutinized as possible evidence. Viewers began to question if they had unknowingly been watching actual victims. Local authorities took notice when concerned users started submitting tips, linking Devon's videos to the missing person cases. At first, police were skeptical. YouTube horror content was notorious for pushing boundaries, and many creators leaned into controversy for views. But once forensic experts were brought in to analyze the clips, the tone changed. One video was closely examined, a grim piece called The Crawl Space. A body was shown curled in a corner, unmoving, with visible bruises and dried blood. There was no indication of movement, breath, or cuts in the footage. Experts agreed the figure was likely not acting. The detail was too accurate. The stillness too final. A new theory emerged: Devon wasn't using actors. He was using victims. An official investigation was launched. Detectives began the painstaking task of connecting each disappearance with corresponding footage. Dozens of clips were flagged. Matches to real missing persons increased. The evidence grew overwhelming. Devon had documented each of his crimes and published them in plain sight, disguised as horror shorts. He'd hidden murder beneath camera angles, editing, and titles like One Way Out and Beneath the Floorboards. What made it worse was how long it had taken to notice. The internet had watched horror unfold, clip by clip, and had applauded it. The investigation into Devon Lake reached a critical turning point when digital forensic teams traced the IP address used to upload Lake Show FX content. The signal bounced through several VPNs and proxies, but eventually led authorities to a rural property just outside Coos Bay, Oregon. On paper, it belonged to a shell company registered under a fake name. From above, It looked like a forgotten warehouse, weathered siding, overgrown weeds, and no signs of recent activity. But investigators suspected otherwise. A SWAT team executed a warrant at dawn. What they discovered inside was worse than anyone had expected. The warehouse was not abandoned, it had been converted into a filming studio of horrors. Each room was a carefully constructed set, recreated to match the scenes from Devon's most popular videos. A filthy mattress lay in one corner, identical to the one from the last night. A clawfoot tub set beneath a flickering overhead light, just like in still water. Bloodstains covered some of the floors. Chains were bolted to the walls. In one section, there was a chair surrounded by cameras and wires, clearly designed for staged restraint, but nothing about it felt like acting. Scattered across the building were props and costumes, most of them stained and torn. But the most disturbing find came in a walk-in freezer, located behind a false wall in the back of the warehouse. Inside, 4 bodies were discovered frozen and posed as if waiting to be filmed. Each one corresponded to a person listed as missing, confirmed through fingerprints and dental records. They weren't just victims of murder, they were part of Devon's vision. He had posed them for future use, props in his growing library of horror. Nearby, authorities found Devon's editing suite. It was set up in a small, soundproofed room lit only by computer monitors. On his desktop were hundreds of video files, some already published, others still in progress. One folder, labeled Final Cuts, contained raw, unedited footage of the victims, some of them alive, restrained, and terrified. The content left even the most seasoned investigators shaken. There was no music, no effects, just the sound of fear, recorded in its purest form. The level of organization was chilling. Devon had created shot lists, notes on lighting angles, costume changes, and even detailed storyboards. This wasn't the work of someone impulsive. It was calculated, controlled, filmmaking fused with murder. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Devon himself was gone. A food wrapper in the trash indicated he had left within the past 48 hours. Surveillance cameras on the property had been disabled. A car registered under a false identity was missing from the garage. Investigators realized he had planned his escape. The media exploded with the story. News anchors called it one of the most disturbing criminal cases of the decade. Social media turned Lake Show FX into a cautionary tale of how entertainment can mask evil. But Devon had vanished, leaving behind only death, silence, and a camera that had captured it all. Weeks passed without any sign of Devon Lake. The abandoned warehouse had become the focus of national news, and his face was plastered across every television screen and newsfeed. Yet, there were no solid leads. He had vanished completely, as if he'd scripted his own disappearance. Some believed he was hiding in another state. Others thought he had fled the country. A few even suggested he had taken his own life in the wilderness to avoid capture. But then, just as the story began to fade from headlines, something unexpected happened. At 2:13 a.m., on a quiet Tuesday morning, a new video was uploaded to the Lake Show FX YouTube channel. The title was simple: The End Scene. It was the first upload in over a month, and it sent a ripple of panic and fascination through the online community. Within minutes, thousands of viewers had clicked on it. Law enforcement was alerted immediately. The video began with a static-filled screen and then slowly faded into an image of Devon, standing in front of a mirror in a dimly lit room. He wore a black hoodie and held a camera in one hand, recording his own reflection. His face was calm, unapologetic. He didn't speak directly to the audience, but what followed was a chilling self-narration spoken softly, as if rehearsed 100 times. In his recorded monologue, Devon confessed to everything, not out of guilt or remorse, but as a final declaration of purpose. He described his work not as murder, but as a commitment to the rawest form of art. He claimed that traditional filmmaking was dishonest, and that true horror came from capturing unfiltered, unsimulated fear. His victims, he said, had become part of something eternal. He spoke with no emotion, no wavering voice, only clarity, cold and resolved. Halfway through the video, the camera angle changed. Devon walked into a dense forest, holding the camera in front of him. The ground was muddy, the trees tall and bare. He kept walking, saying nothing now, just the sound of his footsteps and the occasional gust of wind. After several minutes, he reached a small clearing where a tree stump sat in the center, surrounded by scattered leaves and branches. He placed the camera on the stump, adjusted the frame, and then walked slowly out of sight. The video continued to record for another hour. Nothing moved, nothing happened, just silence and the haunting stillness of the woods. Then the screen faded to black. Forensics teams attempted to trace the video's origin, but it had been uploaded through a heavily encrypted network. Authorities launched searches in multiple forests across the Pacific Northwest, but no trace of Devon was ever found. Some believed the video was staged and that he was already long gone, using the upload as a distraction. Others feared he was planning another project under a different name. The Lake Show FX channel was deleted shortly after, but copies of his videos continue to circulate in the darker corners of the internet. Each upload now carries a different weight, as viewers realize what they were truly watching. For over a year, Devon had turned death into content, and millions had watched, liked, and shared it, never knowing they were part of his final masterpiece.